Okay. Sorry. Had to start recording. Let's get back to it. Okay. So last lecture we went over conditionals and loops. So we covered like conditional statements, so like booleans, true and false, and comparing statements. We went over the range functions and we also went over lists. So like looping through lists with a for or while loop. So we're just going to go over that. For a quick refresher, the syntax for a for loop is for some variable in some range. And the syntax for range is start, stop, step. Start being inclusive, stop being disinclusive. So if you want to stop at 5, you have to put 6. And then step is how many variables you skip each turn. So if you want to iterate every other variable, you're going to put 2 because that's how many it's going to take at a time. And it'll ignore the second one. For the while function, the while loop, it's going to be while condition is true or like while condition is greater than or less than. Then you're going to have some code return something. So pretty straightforward for those two. It is normal to forget syntax a lot of the time, which is why we want you guys to Google things. You can literally look up anything. If you have any coding question ever, the first thing that you should do is try and figure it out. And then the second step is Google it. Don't go to ChatGPT. Just try to Google it and look at the syntax and figure it out first before you turn to asking somebody like your friend or coming to office hours or something like that. Because that'll help you learn how to code anywhere and do anything, especially for research. That's how you code. There's tons of resources online for that. A really easy way is to go to images and just quickly check the syntax. Otherwise, you can go to like the official Python script if you want to know more about what a function does. And if you're getting some sort of like block of code to do some sort of function, or if somebody already wrote a function that you want, just make sure that you cite where it came from. Just put a little comment with like the link or the name of the website that you got it from so that we know where it's coming from, especially for homework. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about refreshing and peeling code off the internet. So let's get started. The first problem, I'm gonna have you guys try this for a couple minutes, probably like 3 minutes. It's just print I 10 times using both a for and while loop. So again, the for loop, you're gonna say for I in range, whatever range you want. So in this case, we want it to print 10 times. So figure out how to put that into the syntax of a for loop, and then whatever you need to put here to get it to print 10 times. So I'll give you guys until like 3:49 for both of those, or like 5 minutes. I think that's enough time. Hmm? Tuesdays. It works better. I think it should. I think I was emailing one person. She couldn't make my last lecture, the one that I like butchered the recording for. Oh. So that's been a whole thing, but she can make the like later one, so I think it should be better. And last week I had like 3 different people like after lecture be like, wait. So it's just in 121 instead of 355, right? I can check. And whatever I sent you on just I think the person. Is there a homework due today? 3. Yeah, okay, I'll make a little announcement. This file, B courses, files under discussions. Should be conditionals, loops discussion. If you download it, you can open it up through a VS Code. Okay, are you guys feeling good about this one or need a couple more minutes? If you're good, give me a thumbs up. If you need a couple more minutes, thumbs down. Okay, I'll give you guys about 2 more minutes. The Discord notification. I know I sent it in. Yeah. I know. Should probably mute my computer.
You can, or they put them in.
Yeah.
What did they put them in?
They're like, it's an entrance tomorrow, and it's big and minister, they also.
Is there a way to set like the files on B courses to like automatically upload at a certain time?
I can show you how.
Okay, because I only see the little upload button and then it automatically does it. Like,
Yeah, I can show you how.
Okay.
No, you're all good.
All right, I'm gonna go over this one. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, it's okay. For the for loop, the beginning of it is just gonna be for I in range. For this one, we want the range to be up to 10. So we start from 0 and we go up to 10, and the step is 1. And then you always need a colon after the first line in a for loop. And then if you hit enter, it'll automatically indent it as long as you put the colon. So for range, the reason why we're doing 0, 10, 1 is because, like I said, we want to start at 0. 10 is disclusive, so it's going to print up to 9. If we want it to print 1 through 10, then we can just start it at 1 and go to 11. And the step is 1. I'm just putting, it's like automatically 1. I'm just putting it there just to be very clear. Technically, you could just put 10 and it'll do the exact same thing, but just for teaching's sake, I'm putting all of it so that you know what's happening behind the scenes there. So for I in range 0 through 10, essentially, we want it to just print I. And the reason it's got the little parentheses around it is because we want it to print the actual letter I. We don't want it to iterate because Python reads I as just some arbitrary value within the range 0 to 9. So if you don't put those little quotation marks, it would just print 0 through 9. So I'll show that if we run the file in our terminal. Sorry, I gave this a horribly long name. it'll run and print 0 through 9 because every single time, like the way Python reads this is that it's going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up until 10, and then it stops. And that's like I is essentially X. So for X in a certain range, it's going to print it. If you want it to just print a certain variable, you have to put the little quotation marks around it, and then Python will no longer read it as a variable. So if you save that and print it again, hopefully we'll get 10 eyes. Yeah. So you get 10 little eyes. Does that make sense for everyone? Any questions? Okay. Yeah.
Says I is not defined.
I is not defined. Okay. Brianna will take a look and help you out. So if we wanted to do this with a while loop, looking back at the syntax for a while loop, it's going to be while a certain condition is true, and then the code that we want it to do. So we want it to do the same thing. We just want it to print I. So I'm going to copy that. So while I is, let's say, less than 10, we want it to print I. So for this one, we can say I is equal to 0. And then every time we iterate through this, we're going to add 1 to I. So I plus equals 1. That syntax plus equals 1 is equivalent to I equals I plus 1, which means every time Python runs through this, it's going to add 1 to I. So if we run through this once, I will be equal to 1 inside the loop, and so on and so forth until it hits 10, which is when this will stop running. So let's save it and run it in the terminal. And we should have 20 eyes. Doesn't look right. I'm going to comment out the first one so that we can only see what the second one is running. Okay, there we go. 10 eyes. Is everyone good on that one? Any questions on the while loop? All right. Yeah.
I one have to be in the while loop like indentation or can it be outside the while?
Yeah, it does have to be inside the indentation because the indentation is how Python knows that it's a part of the while loop. If you put it outside of the indentation, it'll only do that once. So it's only going to repeat whatever is indented inside of that. These are like commonly put into functions, so it's a little bit easier to read it and go, okay, this is inside the function. It's going to loop this part a certain amount of times and then only return a certain output. So it's a little bit confusing here, but in a function, I think it's a little bit more clear. We're going to go over that in the next problem. Okay, so moving on to the next problem. Problem 2, we're going to go over conditionals. So conditionals, just to review, they're when you have a certain comparison function. So you can think equal to, less than, greater than. So for this one, think of all the ways you can compare a number x with a value 10. Basically what I just said. I just kind of gave it away, sorry. But you're going to want to write a function that will take in a value of x and compare it with 10. So you want your function to make sure it covers all of the ways. So less than, greater than, equal to. And for each of those different comparisons, you're going to want it to return a different value. So you're going to have a different return or print statement. So just for review, that's how you start a function. And every function needs a return statement. And your code will go on the inside. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes for that one as well. Probably like 4 minutes or so. So 4:02.
another method, like, like the three individual quotations. Like, if you write it out that way, it's like a full. Right.
Oh, yeah, it's nearly his head.
It's not complete out, but definitely, unfortunately,
Determine about that.
job,
I forgot.
to do that.
With
There's
the
one thing that that
Like
at
here.
the other end, but
in the-
if you like write it in it, if you like do out like
You
this,
forgot to put
then
it
you can
here.
like comment thing where
That I
what
should
you have to do is like
I have
three in a row, then if you try to like, do
handled the-
three individually and then return to three more. Oh, never mind, that worked. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Same thing as last time. If you guys are ready, thumbs up. If not, if you need an extra minute, thumbs down. Okay. I'm gonna move on. So I'm gonna go over this one. If you're not ready, just don't look. The solutions will be posted. Keep working. So for this one, it's good to have a function name that's descriptive of what you're doing. So I'm just gonna call this one compare. And for my variable, I'm gonna use x. And as for most functions, I'm gonna put a description. So I'm gonna put 3 apostrophes and just say that this one compares the input value of x to the value of 10. That way, if you're ever curious about this function, you can just put a little question mark after it and print it, and it'll tell you the description of it. So now that we have the description done, I'm going to go through every variation that we can compare x to 10 with. So in this case, I want to compare if x is greater than 10, then I want it to return a print statement that says x equals whatever x value, which is greater than 10. And this syntax right here, the reason I'm putting an F in front of it, it's called an F string. So essentially what that allows you to do is put brackets around a variable and it'll return that variable value. Because usually if you don't have this F in front, then this bracket value is not going to be read as the X variable. So it won't print whatever value we assign to X. It'll just read it as a string. Which makes it a lot easier. You can also add the strings together, but that's a little bit more tedious. So if you just put an F in front of it, it'll print out X as a continuous string. Okay, so that's if X is greater than 10. The next syntax would be elif. So that's kind of like else if. So the other option is else if X is less than 10, then we want it to return a print statement saying x equals whatever x equals, which is less than 10. And then for the third option, we're just going to put else because x can either be greater than 10, less than 10, or equal to 10. So we already covered the first two, which means that the last option has to mean that it's equal to 10. So our return statement is going to say the same start, x equals x, which is equal to 10. Actually, for this one, I'm going to do it in a different way. I'm going to add all the strings together, which is kind of an annoying thing to do, but this is the other way to make sure that x prints as the variable that we assign it to. And we don't need this return statement down here because we already have a bunch. And then the last thing we have to do is call the function. So I'm going to call it to be 10. And hopefully it's going to return this last one that says x is equal to 10. So I'm going to run that in the terminal. And it's unhappy. It's unhappy about the adding, which you can do in Jupyter.
What do you? Oh, you're trying to add the string.
Yeah, which you can do in Jupyter, but it's upset. Okay. Hmm.
Can I see the exact errors for that?
Oh, I think I know what it is. The only thing at an extreme not set. I think you're trying to add a variable with a string that's getting into it. I think that should work. Yeah, because you have an F string. Nope. What if I turn it into a string? Yeah. Okay. You can't add, yeah, that's good. Yeah. So yeah, what you just saw was me using improper syntax. So essentially what I had before is brackets around X, which is the syntax for an F string. So it's considering it a set, so it'll read it as a variable. But in this case, for the last case, I'm just trying to show that you can do this in a different way and have this string print as a continuous string without using the F string. And the way to do that is that strings can be added to strings, but you can't add integers to strings or variables to strings. So X is a variable. So if we wanted to add it to another string, we just use the string function. So it's just str and then parentheses, whatever you want to turn into a string. And that allowed us to print that X is equal to 10, which is equal to 10. Make sense? All right. If you have any questions, I have office hours after this. So swing by. It's in the room next door. Moving on to question 3. Actually, let's make sure our function works with all of our values. So if we do something that's less than 10, something that's less than 10, like 2, should tell us, yeah, X equals 2, which is less than 10. And we can try something that's greater than 10. So we'll do 20. And yeah, so just making sure our function works. It's always a good idea to test all the options in your function, make sure everything's functioning correctly. Okay, so for problem 3, we're gonna go over range. It's a cool function because range essentially allows you to go from a start to stop value with a certain step. So it's pretty similar to slicing. So the first part, what do you guys think would happen from 5 to 5? If you were to say for I in range 5 to 5, I'm going to go over all of these in a minute, but just for now, think about these and write it on your in your file, and then we're going to go over all of them. So I'm just giving examples. So if you had a range from 5 to 5, what would happen? If we were doing like the function above, print I, right? And then for another one, if you did it for 10 to 6, or if we had 10 to 6 with a step of -1, I'm going to take off the parentheses so that it gives us numerical values so that we can see which way it's reading the code in. But just take a minute to think and write down what you think would happen for all of these cases. And feel free to experiment and run these and see what happens. Okay, I'll go over it in about a minute. If you want to test these individually, you can comment them out by either typing a hashtag in front of them or pressing Control/, and it'll comment out the lines that you highlight. Okay, so to start dissecting these, I'm going to run them one at a time. So I've commented everything else out except for this function. And I'm going to run my file and nothing happens. So nothing happens because I'm telling it to start at 5 and stop at 5. And the end is disclusive. So essentially nothing's going to happen because you're stopping at the start. So if we upped this to say 6, let's see what happens. Okay, so it gives us back 1, 5. Because we're saying start at 5 and stop at 6, and 6 is disclusive, so it'll also stop at 5, but this time it has a value of 1. The other way, it's just telling you to essentially not count the first one, but if you make it 6, it does count the first one. So for this one, the original function, I'll just make a comment. Won't print anything. It won't print anything because the start and stop values are the same. So looking at the second function, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to comment out the first one so that I only get the value of the second one and run my file again. And we also didn't get anything. So if we're looking at the syntax for this one as well, we're going to notice that the start is after, oops, sorry, I can't type and talk, is after the, nope, I wrote that backwards. Sorry, I can't type and talk. Stop is before the start. That's what I'm trying to say. So essentially we're telling it to stop at 6, but we're starting it at 10. And Python doesn't understand that because it runs forward. So it runs 1, 2, 3, 4, unless you tell it not to. Because right here, what we're not seeing is that there's a step of 1, which is always the default step. So this one just won't run anything. It won't print anything. But if we tell Python to run it backwards and we say start at 10, stop at 6, then it should be able to understand that we want to stop before the start. There we go. So then it's going to return 10, 9, 8, 7, and not 6 because 6 is disinclusive. So I'm just going to make a note. Okay. It's a good habit to get into the I can't talk today. I'm so sorry. It's good to get into the habit of making comments explaining what your code does. So I just made a comment saying what the output of this is. So it returns 10987, and it didn't do that in this one because this one has a -1 step. Okay. Any questions on that? Cool. For our last problem, it's just going to be, what's up?
Can I ask them a question?
Yeah.
Is anyone running into an error with VS Code on their terminal? Kind of. Okay. Is everyone able to run VS Code with Katie? Can I get a thumbs up or thumbs down?
I don't run it through VS Code.
Yeah, some people were trying. and it was
Okay.
working.
Yeah, if you guys want to see what happens when I run it through VS Code, nothing fun. Oh, it works. Okay. Uh, it doesn't do that like 90% of the time, and it makes me really sad. So I use my terminal, and also because the terminal looks cooler and it makes me feel cooler. So I'm biased. Anyways, problem 4. We're gonna loop through elements in a list. So it's similar to what we were doing before. It's the idea that essentially Python knows to iterate through a list. If you just say for I in a certain list or for I in a certain range, they're essentially the same thing. It's just you're giving it a designated list. So this is really useful if you're trying to iterate through data and trying to apply data to a certain function. You can say run all of these x values through this function, or you can make a quadratic formula and tell it to run a table of values A, B, and C, and it makes your life so much easier. So for a simpler version, how would you loop through elements in a list using a for loop? So I'll give you guys 4 or 5 minutes for this one. I'm not going to give you any hints this time. The hints are earlier in the file. If you're stuck, either look at the slides from last discussion or scroll up and look at the for loop syntax.
Each word
That's
is,
what I'm asking.
yeah.
This is before
Alright.
you read.
Okay.
You don't want to-
Okay.
Oh,
No, I'm not pulling.
this isn't even mine. But it just says Mac. Let's see like these different terminals. I can open it with like
Oh.
if I want to brew terminal.
Oh.
And like this one's called Homebrew, and I feel like it's most hackery.
Yeah, that's why I said that,
Hacking
yeah.
It's kind of fun. But you know, there's like I haven't checked them all. There's like red seconds.
Oh. Pretty fancy.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
But,
Not cool.
not really nice. Also, sorry to bother you again. If you forgot to include a screenshot for homework 2, you're more than welcome to resubmit. We don't take off any points for turning in stuff late. So if someone grades it the first time and you're like, oh, I want to fix that, you can resubmit it. Oh, sorry. And if we get to it, we'll grade it again. So don't panic if you're like, oh my gosh, I failed homework too. Just resubmit it and you'll be fine. So what is your next question? Can you show me your logo, please? Okay. I'm sorry. So I don't see it on your. Sorry.
Oh.
Fully. So can you go to something? You put the screenshot.
Like, no, where did you go? Really, so where?
No, I'm always open to questions. To the work.
If you're stuck, it might help to define some test list. And you can just put random values inside of it. So I'm gonna put 4, 8, 10, 12, and a 9 to give odd numbers some love. And I'll give you guys 1 more minute because we're running out of time. Okay, so let's go over this one. If we're given some list, in this case, I'm just going to use the test list. I'm going to say for some value in test list, so you can always use I. I is a really good value. So for some I in, that does not say in, test list, we want it to just print I. So we just want to iterate through this test list and make sure we know how to do that. So super similar to previous examples. If we run it in our terminal, it should give us back all of the values in our test list. Like I said before, this is good for if you want to run some function or some equation with this. You can always use a for loop instead of having to set an index for every single value, 0 through 5 or 0 through 4 in this case. And it makes your life a lot easier. Are there any questions? If you guys don't have any questions, then you're good to go. What's up? Yeah.
So I'm having this issue where it's like not, it keeps doing this on my remote in, but like this is only run like one line of third line. So I'm just figuring out what's going on.
That's usually the problem I have with VS Code. I know it worked when I showed it this time, but that's always what happens, which is why I go back and forth and I don't run it in VS Code. I've had some success with just saving my file and closing VS Code. But make sure that when you do that, your file is saved and has a path.
So,
But
okay, so I'm like working through whatever this is. Can I just, do I copy and paste it into terminal and then run it?
no.
How does that work?
So what I'm doing, sorry, I'll go over this. I should have gone over this. I will make a comment about this. So essentially, do you know where your file is? Like what directory it's in?
Yeah, it's in like a folder in my download.
Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're going to CD into where this file is. So for me, this is my file path. Okay. Oh. Sorry. Okay. So I'm gonna CD into where this is and then type Python 3 and then just the name of the file. So conditionals, loops, discussion.py, and running this command will run the file. So anything that you put in a print statement here is going to run through here. So for example, if I get rid of this and comment it out and I only have this line, that's another thing. You have to hit Control S to save your file before you run it in here. If you hit the up arrow, it'll have the last command. You just hit enter, nothing is going to come out. Even though I have this here, if you want anything to show up in your terminal, you have to put a print statement. So this was coming up because there's a print statement. This one will show up now because there's a print statement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you want to try it, make sure it works.
So what do I do? I go into terminal.
Go, yeah. So make sure first this is saved. You have a print statement. Great. Go to your terminal on your computer. And then CD into the path where this is.
Do I just type CD and then,
CD space and then wherever the file path is.
so if it's in downloads, I would just like download.
Yeah. And if you're ever not sure, what you can do is type in ls and it'll give you a list of everything that's in the current directory that you're in. So for me, this is my general one. It gives me everything that I have in here. And then I can say CD, I want to go into Python decal. And I know it's there, so it'll work. Does that make sense?
Okay, so, oh,
So you're probably already in some base directory. So if you're in a directory, it's going to tell you that. So if you want to type ls,
Yeah, it came from my.
does that tell you where you are?
no, kind of. It gives you a list of everything that's in the directory you're in. So you're already in Python decal.
Yeah.
Okay. So you already have this file, so you can just type in Python 3.
But like, it's
Why
just
Python 3?
That's just the command to run it in Python. It's a Python file, so you want to make sure
Okay.
you run it in it.
Just all together or space?
No. So it's gonna be all together and then a space. And then the name of your file. So whole thing, conditional underscore loops underscore discussion.py.
good, yeah. So.
Great. There you go. So you have all the I's that you printed earlier, the and then the 10987 from the very bottom.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if I want any of these to show up, I just uncomment them.
Yeah.
And it'll pop up.
And you know how to do that like in the quick way, right? Just like highlight. Okay, so highlight control / and it'll uncomment everything.
Highlight,
And then control /
Does that make sense?
is a command.
It might be command for you. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Just because you're adding things together, like, and like what I
Do you have a question?
No.
like, you're just, it's just.
Thank you though.
Okay. Did you? Thank you.
Yeah, that's very cool.
But,
I was just wondering because I arrived late, so I just finally got like the VS Code all running and stuff.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I saw that you were like writing in here, but then it was like printing in here.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna make an announcement about this because I've had quite a few questions.
Is that
but
what you were just showing the other girl?
yeah. But I've said it a couple times in lecture, but I think I've just glazed over it. But essentially what I do is if you have something here, my terminal in here does not normally work. It's working
Oh.
now.
Just 'cause,
I-
like it's your
it just-
computer or something?
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is. I have not been able to figure it out. Most of the time, my code will be perfectly fine and I'll run it and it will give me a huge error. And I don't know why, and it's working for once. Anyways, I have problems with it and I just don't trust it. So instead, I run it in this. So what I was showing her,
That's what.
Yeah.
You did say it, yeah.
it's okay. I know it's lecture a little bit hard to grab and I'm just glazing over it. So what I do is you CD into where this file is. So for me, it's a super long file path.
Yeah. Okay, like where the file is on my thing.
Right. So if you go into files, do you know where it is in
Yeah.
computer?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, like I have a bunch of nested folders that I have to go into. So I have to write that all out in my terminal, which is why it's convenient. So I'm just gonna write it all out. And when I was showing her, if you don't know where it is, you can just type ls and it'll give you all of the files that you have in that specific directory.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we did this like the first time, right?
Mhm.
And then it would be like, okay, so if it's in like downloads.
It's case sensitive, so you're gonna want a capital D. Yeah.
Oh wait, now I have to go. And then like slash.
Yep.
And then
And then whatever the next one is. So
I think it's just like literally there.
if you don't know, you can always take away the backslash and just click CD downloads. It'll take you into downloads and then click ls.
Yeah, so if you want to do this, you have to go.
And then you can see if it's in there.
Because
Right.
this is a string, so we put it words, and then this is a string. So you can't F the whole thing because not.
I have so much stuff in here.
That's why I have a lot of nested folders. Makes it easier.
So I'll just write it up. So print. Then I'm saying.
Okay.
Hello. What's your name?
Well, I did have it uploaded in here already.
So let's say.
But do I have to like go into it through the terminal?
Yeah. So you want
Okay, so then
is
do I
the
do
file-
like another
is the file in here? Like is the file you want to run in there?
And then.
Yeah, what is it called again? Solution conditionals. Yeah,
Oh, no,
yeah,
mine,
oh, yeah.
mine is not solution.
Okay,
You
yeah,
shouldn't have the
conditional
solution
loop. Yeah, it's this one.
Yeah. So you can already run it from here. So what you're gonna want to do is type Python 3.
Okay.
It's gonna look like that, and then file name. So what's your file name? Conditional
Oh.
loops.
So, we'll just go.
I think it
Is
should
that
be
what it is?
underscore discussion
My
Oh.
eighth is.
or DISK or DISC.
Conditional loops discussion.
My eighth is.
DISC. Yeah, dot .py.
And then we can do eight.
It's not discussion
Sorry,
typed
my-
out, I think. Unless you renamed yours, but
Oh,
it's just
sorry, my brain doesn't work.
No, you're good.
So this is gonna give us an error.
Thank you for bearing with me.
No worries. That's what I'm here for.
Sorry, I'm so slow.
No, you're good. It should be, I think,
But let's say.
the same as mine if you downloaded
We
it.
wanted to do
Ye-
F string.
So you can just.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Should.
Yeah.
Yes, dot .py.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
enter.
Yep, you're right. Oh,
Let's just say I want to.
oh wait, conditional. Okay, so now I'll do Python 3.
Yeah. Can I show you a trick?
Oh yeah.
If you do the up arrow, it'll give you the last command. So you can just go and type
inside of the string.
S here, and then you're gonna have to retype it. But
Back to.
yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Wait,
it doesn't
that's awesome.
understand that you're trying to call. this
Okay, wait,
string.
now what happened?
You have
So
to
nothing
do
happened because you
after
don't have
the
any
convention
print statements
and get the
happening.
curly.
So, or
Oh.
you should.
Oh wait, yeah.
This isn't a string.
Oh, you didn't save. So see how this has
Oh,
a
yeah,
white
yeah.
dot
This
up
is
here?
still a
Yeah.
You're gonna want to click
So all
Command
you
S, I
have
think,
here if I
is
want
for Mac.
But it's not necessary.
Yeah. Okay, thank
Because
you.
you're not doing this.
And then just doing the up arrow and then return, and it should print it. There you go.
Okay.
Wow, that's awesome.
Is that clear now? So if you uncomment anything in here, so say I want all of these, or maybe
Yeah.
I just want that one actually, because that's the only one that'll actually run. And then if I want this to return,
Mhm.
and I want these,
So I would want to go.
I want all of those, I just have to click Control S, or for you Command S. And then if I run it in my, where's my command?
So
There
you
it
do
is.
like Python 3.
Python
the
3.
And then it just runs the file.
It'll run everything in the file.
Yeah, so
Wow.
So see how I have all these eyes and then the
Yeah.
x equals
So,
20.
if I was
That's
to
from
actually-
up
The 10
here.
eyes.
Yeah, and then
This
the
is
comparison, I have x equals 20 from the comparison.
Yeah.
And then the what 10, 9, 8, 7 from up here. And then the list.
Wait, that's so cool.
So these are just.
Thank you.
different
Thank you for
No
showing me
problem.
that. Yeah, because you did say it, but then I was like, wait.
I'll make a page of
supposed to
I'll
be
make
doing
a
that.
page about helpful helpful stuff. Don't worry about it. I went over it super fast, so
Cool.
all good.
I think it's-
Yeah, of course.
It's some time to.
The process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just
I don't want to waste more of your time.
waste of time. That's a good question. Yeah.
Sure.
Oh,
I've been trying to run